and welcome. I will give us a little bit of preamble before we dive in. Let me read the description so we remember why we are all here. Okay, join us for Self-Care Saturday during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Master Trainer Gwendolyn, that's me, a hospice yoga teacher, will lead us through the yin and yang of a breast cancer support class. There will be energetic practices to shift our energy and stoke our inner fire. The class will wind down with gentle practices to develop mobility while honoring our limitations and a need for rest. The class is appropriate for those going through a breast cancer journey as well as their loved ones. So I don't know which of those two groups you are here for. And I think it's important to understand that a breast cancer journey can mean any number of things, and there's no set end point. So we might have people watching the recording or joining us right now that your breast cancer treatment was, I don't know, 15 years ago, and you still feel that you need support to maintain range of motion or to deal with some emotional challenges. That's okay. You're still part of the group. This class is still for you. You may find that there are some people in your life that can benefit from a class like this who just finished their breast cancer treatment yesterday. So as with all of our classes, we're going to modify what we do to make it work for everybody, everywhere, as much as is humanly possible. So dial it down. We are listening to our bodies, we are honoring our limitations, and dial it up if need be. And a lot of these themes, I think, especially on a Saturday morning, apply to a greater range of people. So if you've been spending all day in front of a computer like this, you're probably feeling tight and maybe could use some increased range of motion. But actually what I find interesting about kind of waking up after times of stillness, any kind of illness, surgery, or treatment, actually makes me think of some research on video games. So stick with me. We've probably all heard the question, like, does playing video games make people more likely to be violent or like violence or have no threshold for stopping themselves from seeing violence? And then I more recently heard, but we're asking the wrong question. People playing video games are very heightened emotionally internally, but sit incredibly still. And I think that is an important question for anybody in the meditation and yoga field, because that's what we might be doing, right? You might be incredibly emotionally heightened, but you're in a yoga class and you're on your mat, or you had a tough week and you have to sit still and behave yourself. Or in our case for cancer treatment, very heightened emotionality, whatever might be coming up for you, fear and the unknown, anxiety, pain, all sorts of things, and staying incredibly still during treatment or while feeling unwell or whatever that might be. So with that in mind, I have made our class kind of two yin and yang constructs. So our yang or yang practices, I think about Mulan, our warrior mascot for the class, my favorite Disney princess, this inner fighting spirit. And then for the yang part of our class, more of like, I think of a sage, sort of independent woman, alone, drinking tea, enjoying the afternoon or whatever it might be, more of that happy, comfy stillness time. So we're going to have a mix of two. The yang will help us create, an inner disruption to diffuse emotions. And then the yin will help us to release. I think both are important, because if I just told you, okay, lie down, relax, you might be really fidgety or uncomfortable or notice a lot of tension, especially in the upper body, maybe hips, neck, that kind of thing. But I think like a puppy, if you let it out to play, it will nap peacefully. That's the look we are going for here, I hope. Okay, let me see if I forgot any important things. What kind of mindset can we use for today? Paying attention to feeling, our breathing, no expectations so we can honor our limitations. For years, my intention for every yoga class was just to be open to the experience. So let's see if we can find it a safer feeling to be open to the experience, a safer feeling to be open to curiosity and see what comes up. And we might not like it, but that's okay. It's just something we're going through. And I really want to focus on that theme of developing a feeling of safety and curiosity. Being curious about what comes up, right? We like to tell ourselves a story. We know what's going to happen. I knew it. I knew my shoulder was going to hurt today. But do we really know? Let's see if we can feel safe. Being curious and maybe self-compassionate too. Okay, I am going to rearrange this for myself just a touch. In the spotlight, you can see me. I can see nobody. So hopefully this works out well. Let's start standing. So if you are comfortable sitting or lying down, I'm sorry to break it to you, we're going to stand up. With many of the populations that I work with, so like I said, I'm a hospice yoga teacher. 90% of the time I'm working with day hospice clients, so it's non-residential. It's like a community center for a hospice population. So people are generally able to walk in on their own, but might not have such an easy time with the transition up and down like a standard vinyasa class. So I often like to start standing or sitting in a chair and then work our way down to the mat or back into a chair, depending on the group from day to day. So for my yoga teachers in the class, thinking about how we program our transitions. Not everything has to be fancy flows up and down from the mat. And for just my yogi practitioners in the class, do what you need to do to be comfortable, standing, sitting, take your time transitioning. I'm not trying to test you. We can move more slowly if we need to. Okay, let's shake it out. That is all of the preamble that I'm going to give you. Might want to give our heads a little shake to empty them out. Forget about anything I've said that didn't resonate with you. Hold on to whatever you need. And we will start with a mudra for today. So we're going to interlace our fingers and leave our thumbs up. If you've never done a mudra practice before, these are yoga poses that we do with our hands, and each one represents something. So this one represents protection. Often as we are going through our lives, we feel the need to protect ourselves, and that is healthy and natural. So let's sort of pick up our shield. We're going to guard our hearts, feel safe and protected. Maybe as we drop our feet into the floor, thinking about what does it mean to be standing on our own 2 feet. And if it feels comfortable, feel free to close our eyes. Often after treatment or illness, sickness, sometimes there's difficulty with balance. Maybe the muscles of balance have atrophied or we've lost some feeling in our feet. So we could just leave our eyes open, but relax the muscles around the eyes. Turning our attention inward here. And even if we are seated, gathering that energy and intention of standing tall and strong like a mountain. The winds of change may blow against us, and still we stand tall. Feeling what it feels like to have our fingers interlaced in this symbol of strength and protection. Feeling what it feels like to have our hearts guarded. Taking a few deep breaths in and out, allowing all parts of the torso to expand. Top to bottom, side to side, front to back. Every inhale, we're filling our lungs bottom to top. And with our exhale, simply releasing. Taking this moment and this breath, and each moment and each breath as it comes. We'll draw some strength into our practice. We can take our fingers interlaced or simply open down to our bellies, spreading our fingers out so we can feel the power of our abdominal muscles. We can do this with our eyes closed, still with our inhale, feeling our ribcage expand. And with our exhale, drawing our abdominal muscles in so we can feel that we are building strength from the inside out. So we're going to build some inner fire with our third chakra, the element of fire, in our solar plexus. And we're drawing up through our pelvic bowl. And if you have a little struggle feeling these muscles working, sometimes it helps to take a deep breath in and really like breathe out. You might even like to make a little sound if that helps. Almost once I read in a men's fitness magazine, not a women's fitness magazine, of course, like you've been punched in the stomach or like someone is trying to poke you in the belly, that kind of pulling in feeling to tense our abdominals. So that's what we're going for here. Full breath in, softening the belly on the inhale, expanding the ribcage, and then a strong breath out, tensing our inner strength muscles, our abdominals, our pelvic floor, or what we're calling now, the more trendy wording is pelvic core. And we're going to keep a little bit of that. So let's take it to maybe 30%, something like that. So we have a little bit of tensing here for our inner strength and stability, but we still have the ability to move our breath freely. Let's come back to another symbol of safety. Let's create a cocoon around ourselves. Take a deep breath in, probably feeling the back expanding. And then with our next inhale, we're going to open our butterfly wings and spread the arms out. Squeeze the upper back. So we'll go ahead and exhale, cross the arms. We can tuck the chin. And inhale, opening up. So this will be a variation of our standing cat and cow. Feeling a sense of safety, we can tuck the tail and the chin, curling in. And then inhaling up and out, lifting up. So I hope I can take us from a feeling of being guarded and needing safety to open and flourishing. And we might like to make it quite a big range of motion. Some of us might like to reach the arms forward instead and then open up and out. We'll give it a few more here. Squeezing the upper back muscles so we're feeling both safe, protected, and strong and open. Okay, and then this next one, let's stay open with those butterfly or moth wings, whichever your preference is. Might be more comfortable with a bend in the elbows. I'm drawing the thumbs back. Lifting our hearts, untucking our tails. Let's look tall. Again, we can inhale into the ribcage, exhale, draw the belly in. And we'll bring our posture back to neutral. Let's give the hands a shake, and we're going to go for a little walk here, marching on the spot. So this is our first movement. It is not a yoga pose. We are diffusing our energy. We might want to really shake. You might be happier making a fist. We're going to let it out. Maybe roll the shoulders. You might like to do a lion's breath. Let the tongue hang out. Exhale strongly. Give it a couple more shakes. And then we will plant our feet again. We'll do one of my favorites to wake the body up, percussion. And we can use either our fingertips or a soft fist. And let's start on the front of the thighs. We do the hip bones. And again, it's not really a yoga pose. It's more of an energy technique in our related practices related to our yoga practice, so we can veer off the path of a typical yoga practice to support our bodies, right? We can go down the length of each arm, maybe across the chest. There are a lot of practices like Tarzan or a gorilla if you really want to beat on the chest or down the sternum. This is supposed to be incredibly good for our immune system to tap on the sternum. A lot of people say it wakes them up better than a cup of coffee. I still like my coffee, but this can't hurt. Maybe under the collarbones. According to traditional Chinese medicine, we can release grief and worry across the collarbones. And again, by doing this sort of movement, stretching out, any kind of heart opening, arms in T, restorative heart opener. So we really can't go wrong. Wherever it feels good, go ahead and do a little bit more percussion. We could go completely down the legs, down the arms. There are no rules. Let your intuition guide you. Another one that we might like, traditional Chinese medicine, the anger point on your liver. So if I'm to mirror you, it is the right side of the torso, just around the lip of the rib cage. Maybe feeling some anger we would like to release. What's that old saying? Anger is like a cup of poison we pour for someone else and drink on our own. Okay, we're gonna sweep that out. Let that feeling go. Maybe go down the legs. And again, let's move into a smoother practice to ground and balance our energy. Lateral flexion, we're probably familiar with this. We're going to inhale, one arm up, one arm down, stretching down the opposite thigh, reaching fingertips up to the sky, and then we take it side to side. Exhaling to switch, inhaling to reach. We can keep working with the same theme. Inhale, feeling the ribcage expand into the underarm this time, and exhale, drawing from the core to pull ourselves back. Now, if I've just gone through breast cancer treatment, what is the likelihood that I have full extension of both arms? I don't know what kind of treatment it might have been, yes or no, but probably not as likely. So what am I seeing in my classes? Reduced mobility on one or both sides, greater comfort with a bent arm, not quite so high. But if the pose is called lateral flexion, let's remember that we're moving the spine into a curved shape. So we could not even lift up and just take it side to side. Inhaling as we reach down, kind of rolling the shoulder back, and exhaling as we're coming back through center. Now, I don't know what your range of motion is or how you like to do this pose, so feel free to do it in the way that suits you best. We'll go once more each way. Strong pull from the core to come back through center. And then we'll meet in the center. Let's reset our posture. Feet firm on the ground, shoulders up to the ears, rolling down and back. And we'll go ahead and step to the top of the mat. So I'll give us a little bit of a spruce up to our typical flight of the bird. If you've never done flight of the bird, I'll start at the beginning. We can take our hands to heart center, and we'll alternate a step back into sort of a short Tai Chi warrior one. Right or left, doesn't matter. We step back, we take a breath in, and we use our exhale, again, pull from the core, create that inner fire to step to the top. We alternate, other foot steps back, inhale, tall spine, growing taller, exhale, step to the top. That's our pattern. Generally, we use cactus arms as we flow through here, so elbows to 90, but again, honoring range of motion. Maybe for today, that means the back of the hands are reaching back, and that feels a lot nicer across our collarbones. If we're thinking about releasing grief and worry, we want our collarbones to be happy. Sometimes people say imagining our collarbones are growing wider out to the sides. Maybe we're focusing on posture. We could be pulling the elbows back with our fingertips on our shoulders to help us think about posture, right? So we have lots of options. What did I say earlier? No rules. Let our intuition guide us. I think we spend a lot of our lives being told what to do, how to do things, and then we lose touch with our inner teacher. So like I said, any arm position that we like. We'll go once more each way, and then I'll give you a little bit of a different variation. Of course, choose a comfortable speed, a comfortable breath pattern. I'm always talking fast, moving fast. Okay, let's come to the top of the mat, and then we're gonna move to the back of the mat. So I recently watched a talk with a doctor who had designed a fantastic balance program for not just breast cancer, but people who had come out of cancer treatment. I had no idea. People will go through cancer treatment, lose feeling on the soles of their feet, their muscles will atrophy, they lose their balance, they go home, trip over the edge of a carpet or a yoga mat, fall and break a hip and end up back in the hospital. So her argument is that yoga should be the gold standard for balance recovery after treatment. So with that in mind, how do we usually lose our balance? Stumbling when we step forward. So as much as we love our flight of the bird stepping backwards, let's try it today, stepping forward. We'll take hands to heart center as we did before. Our alignment is a little bit different. If we step forward, we're lifting our back heel, unlike what we just did. All right, we step to the back of the mat, and we're ready for the other side. Stepping forward, rolling through the foot as though we're walking, lifting the back heel, and stepping to the back of the mat. We can add our arms, any arm position that we like. We looked at different ones already. Maybe working on posture. Maybe we're feeling we like those butterfly arms. We want to be really big and open. Yes, if our balance is feeling strong today, we can do a really big step forward, right? If we were in a boot camp class, we'd have free weights. We'd be doing a giant lunge forward. So feel free to do something like that. If we are nurturing ourselves, honoring our limitations with a smaller range of motion, maybe it takes a couple steps to get back. We're working with limited balance this morning. That's okay. We're getting stronger with each breath, right? Inhaling forward, exhaling back. You may find you prefer the breath backwards from that. Okay, enough chit chat for me. Let's do a few more. You can get into your bodies without listening to me. What does it feel like to be leading heart first into the world? Open-hearted position. Once more each side. And we're ready to come back with our feet together. And we're going to step wide on the mat. So I don't know how you are arranged in your own home. I'm going to turn to face you, and we're ready for our sun and moon. So if anybody's new to Yoga Fit, this is a Yoga Fit classic. Most of our classes, we go into a wide kind of plie squat. If you are on a mat, and we take our fingertips to touch our knees, our first finger should be just about pointed to the corner edges of the mat, something like that. If we're in a smaller stance, then we're not dropping so low. If we're in a bigger stance, then yes, we have created a hole to sit into. Okay, let's bring palms up, elbows in. We're gonna lower and then inhale and extend out. So again, I find this a more comfortable range of motion for cranky shoulders, or again, like I said, after breast cancer treatment. That's probably the whole reason we're here. Generally in our Yoga Fit classes, right, we do this big sweeping movement. So yes, we could do that, but I like to start smaller, giving that option. Again, a nice open position across the collarbones. And yes, if you feel you wanna do a much bigger movement, we could think of this as a power pose as well, bringing in the mood and feeling some optimism, lifting our hands, our hearts, and our eyes together at the top of every pose, thinking to ourselves, yes. Probably inhaling up, exhaling down, but we could switch it up, keep the breath comfortable. Hopefully we're feeling a little warmer at this point. We've been moving a little while. And I do find, yes, lots of my participants who are not familiar with yoga, this is a lot for the legs. But we'll keep going. I'm hoping that all of us here are okay with this. We could sit as well if we needed to. Okay, let's meet at the bottom. We'll lower down. We'll do something else to diffuse our emotions. We're going to reach one hand forward and then pull strong into the rib cage. So maybe we're inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. We can make a tight fist. We might like to make noise as we go. When we teach the little kids, this is our choo-choo breath because it is pretty quick. Again, diffusing emotion. If we would like, we could speed it up. We could add a little twist. So we're using lots of muscles in the back and the upper body to keep ourselves strong and develop that rotation. Our lower body is stable, supporting our weight. Okay, we'll do a few more. Once more each way. And let's release. We'll take our hands to our thighs. We'll turn our toes forward and let's come just halfway down into a flat back position. So we're giving our lower body a little break, but our upper body, we are still working on a strong spine. So we're not practicing slouching. Probably nobody on earth needs to do that. We're shifting our butts back to lengthen the back of the legs. And we'll go ahead and bend one knee. Again, I don't know where you're situated in your home or what's going on. One knee, right or left, doesn't matter. I will tell you when we are doing right or left, but for now, just one side. And let's do the other side. Side lunge. After all that flowing movement, finding strength, stability, grounded in stillness. And then let's start to flow side to side. So we're going to inhale through center. Exhale strong through our lower body, kind of a chair pose alignment in our bent leg. We're working towards knee over ankle. Some of us might be comfortable a little bit more turned out. And if we want, yes, we can reach overhead and lower down. If we're comfortable with a tall, strong posture, perfect. If not, again, maybe thumbs to shoulders, lifting ourselves up before we lower down again. So as we take thumb to shoulder, it reminds us to lift the chest, lengthen the belly. And if we are okay with a giant range of motion, yeah, go for it. Often people who've been either sitting in front of a desk or just never stretch, in an effort to reach their arms overhead, they're still really hunched. So they might get more benefit from that thumb to shoulder variation, lifting up. Okay, one more each way. We'll come back through center. Let's do a little power pose if we can. We'll draw the shoulders up, back, and down. Let's reach out into this yes position again. Might feel good to say yes really loudly out loud. Might feel better to say it inside your own mind. Take a breath in. Yes. We'll bring hands to heart. Let's pull it on in. We'll step to the top of the mat. So wherever you've been moving around in your home, let's go to the top of our space. We're actually going to make our way down for cat and cow, down dog, that sort of thing. So if we like to circle sweep, as we so often do, we can. We're coming into a forward fold. We can hang out here for a little while. If any of us get dizzy in a forward fold, we can stay halfway down. Some of us might like to do a little head shake. And then let's step ourselves back to a down dog or child's pose. And like I said, we won't be doing a ton of transitions, so do as you need to do. We might really want to do a lot of movement here. If we're ready for a deep child's pose, of course, we can take our knees wide, we can settle ourselves back. But we might need some more variation in our child's pose. Again, overhead range of motion is a struggle for so many. So maybe we're on elbows instead. If we like a downward facing dog, go for it. You may have been told not to do anything weight bearing on the upper body, in which case we can just stay down here. But if we like, we could go for a dolphin, so that's a forearm downward facing dog, or a typical downward facing dog. Let's invite a little movement into our bodies. So we could be walking the dog, or if we're in child's, shifting the hips side to side. Maybe the forehead can rest on the mat and turn the head side to side. Let's do one deep breath in, a long breath out, option to blow through our lips. Relax the face. And then we'll come into all fours. So yes, we could do this seated, standing, kneeling, but if we're okay with all fours, let's come on down, spreading our fingers wide, pushing our body weight into our fingerprints, give the elbows a little bend. And let's have some free flowing movement with our cat and cow. So if we're familiar with cat and cow, we know we push the earth away as we breathe out, making our spines the shape of a rainbow. And then as we breathe in, we make our spines the shape of a letter U. So that's our typical cat and cow. But flowing movements, and even better, circling movements, can feel very nurturing and help us to calm the mind, calm the body. So we may even prefer to do a dancing cat instead of a typical cat and cow. So we can take our rib cage in a circle, which takes some coordination, yes. Trying to draw a circle with our hearts side to side. Opening our hearts in all directions. So we're opening the back door of the heart as we lift the spine to the sky. Taking our heart into our underarm, letting the heart drop towards the mat, and then taking our heart to our other underarm as we circle the ribs. Or we could think about circling the tailbone instead, and let's just let our spines go along for the ride. So whichever part of the body we're thinking about, don't overthink it, let's just get some movement going, and then the rest of the spine can come along for the ride. If you feel you've mastered one direction, let's go the other direction, taking the heart to all four walls, taking the tailbone in a circle, letting our spine go along for the ride, acknowledging how this is going for you. Fun? Frustrating? What is going on? Maybe you used to be a professional belly dancer and this feels great. And when we feel we've gotten enough out of this, maybe you want to go a couple more directions, a couple more revolutions in one direction or the other. Again, let's come into a comfortable resting pose. So we have lots of different variations for our child's pose. If we have blocks, we can use them. We may prefer downward facing dog. And we can use this as a self-compassion break. Noticing whatever you just went through to make that range of motion possible. Noticing your own emotional reaction. And just giving yourself a little pat on the back. It's okay. We're actually going to come up to standing one more time. I want to loosen our hips before we get there. So I personally like this kind of transition. You might like to come into a standing lunge. So that is our other option. But if we're okay with it, let's go ahead and take the right foot forward into a kneeling lunge. If we have blocks, we can use them. And we have so many variations of a kneeling lunge, or you may know it as a dragon. One foot is in the front. We have this split stance. Ideally, we have our knee over our ankle so that the muscles of the right leg can kick in to help us out. If we took a really short step, we're probably not going to get the most benefit out of it. So let's see if we can readjust ourselves forward. But again, this is another one. If we've been through any time of stillness or stress, these muscles can shorten and tighten, and the left hip kind of pulls in, gets cranky, doesn't like to be nourished and stretch out in a healthy way. If we feel good in our kneeling lunge, maybe we do a little movement front and back. Maybe we want to do a little shift side to side to find a better spot. But hopefully we're feeling some length between knee and hip on the left leg. Let's check in with our posture again. Maybe we open out into our cactus arms for a round of breath. And take as long as we need to take to switch sides. Those of us who are gifted with either blocks or long arms will have an easier time switching. And if we take longer, again, let's use this as an opportunity for self-compassion. Just observing what's happening and saying, that's okay. I'm doing my best, and the rest is the rest. Finding a suitable variation of a kneeling lunge. A big split stance between the front heel and the back knee so that we have room to sink into. And we're looking for stretch in the front of the right hip. Might need to make some adjustments to get a good spot. Sometimes the first step forward, we don't really feel anything. So if you've never done this before, it's probably quite tight. And forgive me, my yogis who do this 500 times a day. Probably nothing new here, but maybe we can make it new by adjusting the pelvis, adjusting our posture, wiggling our toes, pressing down through the top of the back foot. Noticing where our minds go in a kneeling lunge. And yes, we could have done a standing lunge instead, just like how we started with our flight of the bird, if the knees are cranky. We are all going to come off our knees. We're going to make our way to standing. So do what you need to do to get to a standing position. We can step backward or forward, give ourselves time to recalibrate standing on our mats. We can reset when we get there, circle sweep the arms, do a little check-in of how we're feeling in our shoulders and upper body. We have 1, 2 more to kind of get our energy strong, and then we will wind it down. So from the top of our mats, let's go ahead and step wide again. Turn whichever way makes the most sense for you. And we do a wide kind of Tai Chi position. Some of us are more comfortable wider, some of us are more comfortable narrower, listening to our bodies, right? As always. And we're going to rotate side to side. This is one of my favorites. It's a variation of a Tai Chi pose, but we're going to give it a little instead. Okay, so let's take our cactus arms up. We're going to inhale, And for the sake of us going together, let's take our right hand across the body as we exhale. We're going to inhale, and then the left hand across the body. And we're going to shoot the arm across. Inhale through center, and then shoot the arm across. So if we really get going, we can stay in this low kind of plie, make it super strong. Have some intensity. Careful you don't get lightheaded. Okay, let's go a couple more each side. Last one here. Let's come back through center. See how it feels to hold this strong position in our plie. And I do like to use a lot of this position to diffuse emotion. We do a big one sometimes, inhaling up and it's a little too advanced for this kind of sensitive shoulder overhead range of motion population, but I will let you know that is an option. Let's pull the elbows back. And then with our upper body really squeezed, maybe even want to make a tight fist to pull the elbows back. Tensing the upper back, we can even pull the chin back a little bit, and then let's see what feels good for the neck. My preference is often to turn the head side to side, and anytime we turn the head, we can ask ourselves, how can I invite in a fresh perspective? Oh, maybe turning, tilting, looking up and down. We'll release the arms, give those shoulders a roll. And I said we're going to do two. Last one. Let's come into warrior two with the right knee bent. So if you're okay still facing me, we'll stay here. We'll just pivot to the other side. It's a simpler transition than going through downward dog, right? We're using our brains with our transitions. A little bit of a smoother way to diffuse our energy. We're going to grab our bow and arrow, pull back, and shoot through our warrior two. Grab your bow and arrow, pull back, and shoot. So we're developing our inner fighting spirit. Thinking about, instead of an arrow, what resources we have in our own lives that we can draw upon. Is there a friend you can call? A service you can ask for? A number you can phone? A website you can go to? Maybe there are some inner resources, some qualities you have you've forgotten that you possess. Asking a little bit more of ourselves and others to make it through this time. Or maybe we've been drawing upon our inner resources too much and need to ask other people to pick up the slack. Maybe we've been drawing on our outer resources too much and we need to tap into our inner strength. Let's do one more here. Really take aim. Let it go. And guess what? We got two sides. We'll swing those arms out. Bending our left knee. Grab our bow and arrow, pull back and let it go. So yes, we're developing a lot of range of motion each time we reach behind the head. Could I have simply programmed a tricep stretch for us today? Well, yeah, but why would I if we can do this? You may have a role model from pop culture that you really, maybe Katniss or I don't know, you think about that warrior spirit that they have that you would like inside yourself to develop those inner resources. Bring that image of that person into your mind now. Maybe we feel the burn. Every pull is a little bit different. Every time we move, it's a little bit different. Each time the heart beats, it's a little bit different, and that is a measure of health. Okay, here we are. Whew. Let's turn toes forward. If we're okay with this range of motion, we'll come into a wide-legged forward fold. We may like to start standing, pull the elbows back, same way we started. We have opened our cocoon, we are spreading our wings. We might like to interlace in behind, but we don't have to. We have done some pretty intense movement. We are going to come into a wide-legged forward fold. If this makes you dizzy, we're only going to come halfway, same as we did earlier. Punching our hands down in line with the spine. And if anybody at home likes to do a really deep forward fold, I won't stop you, but I will not demonstrate. So please practice within what feels best for you. Breathing evenly. We're going to draw from the core to bring ourselves back up to the top. Let's walk our feet together. We've done a fair amount of energy diffusing. We are going to connect with our yin energy. Instead of trying harder, we're going to begin to try softer. So we need enough space to step side to side. You might like to step to the top of the mat so that you can see me. I'm going to stay facing you like this, okay? Let's do a tree pose on our favorite side. Whichever side feels good. And if we're keeping in mind challenges to our balance, we probably have both feet on the floor. Coming to tree. Maybe one hand up and one hand down to think about pulling from the core and breathing fully. We're going to flow side to side. So we have to step our feet open and come into tree on the other side. We pause for a round of breath. And then we switch side to side. So we're going to keep flowing. We're going to do a flowing balance. So usually our tree pose or our balance pose is our cool down at the end of class. But let's think about this. If we're thinking of older populations, deconditioned populations, we need a longer cool down than simply standing on one foot for a few rounds of breath. So here we are. We can again make a nice safe cocoon around ourselves and open the arms out without overdoing it. Maybe we're just holding the arms out to T for balance. We can match our breath to our movement, maybe inhaling as we stand, exhaling as we transition, or whatever feels like a healthy breath pattern. Please don't overdo it. Pausing on each side, which for a lot of my participants, that's all we can do. Maybe just lift for one split second and then back down. Perfect. That's a great starting point. Balance is one of those things that just, if you don't practice every day, we lose it so quickly. But actually, what's quite rewarding about it is it comes back pretty quickly too. We'll go once more each side. And I have 15 pages of notes. I think we have covered everything. We are ready to take it down to the mat. I'm going to re-angle my camera just a touch, and if you are ready to come down to the mat and back into child's or down dog. So taking our time with this transition, right? We don't want to push ourselves too fast. I don't know what's been going on with your week. I don't know what time zone you're in, but please take as long as you need. We are going to enjoy just a moment in child's pose, or really any other comfortable resting pose, right? If you do enough child's, it can start to feel really uncomfortable. You're overdoing it. Maybe we just like to sit. Maybe we like down dog. It's all good. And then when you're ready, done with our mindful pause in child's, we'll come to a seated position. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, let's do one of my favorites. We'll do Ganesha Mudra. So if you are familiar with Ganesha, Ganesha is the destroyer of obstacles. And I'm sure we feel as though we have faced enough obstacles in our lives. I'm sure that is a universal. There's nobody out there that's like, no, I could use some more obstacles. And wouldn't it be nice if we could channel our energy into destroying those obstacles? So we're going to take one palm up, one palm down, and then link our fingers together. This is our Ganesha Mudra, and we could sit here and do a more passive variation of it, or we can get a bit of a neck stretch with it. And I will cue us right and left for this one. So if we have the right hand underneath and linked in and the left hand on top, we're gonna pull the elbows away from one another. And then we're gonna take right ear to right shoulder. So we're stretching the left side. And that action of pulling apart should help us get a little bit more stretch in here. And if we went backwards, we could just see which hand feels better. Again, trust our intuition. We don't have to understand why it feels better with the opposite hand underneath. We could just try it out. Safety and curiosity. Just try it. What would we tell a 5-year-old playing on the playground? Just try it. Okay, we'll come back through center. And we're gonna do the other side. Okay, opposite hand on top, opposite hand underneath. Tuck our fingers, pull apart. Left ear to left shoulder, stretching the right side. Again, we could test and see, does that feel like we have the right one on top, the correct one? Not meaning right or left, meaning correct. And again, we can come back through, roll those shoulders out, and we'll do one more for our necks, right? Because if we've had any kind of experience that puts us into this sort of cocooning shape, we're gonna get tension through the front of the chest and shoulders. So just underneath or on our collarbones, let's grab our flesh and we're gonna pull down. And then we're gonna reach the eyebrows, the eyes, and the nose up and away. So we're moving in two directions, pulling down and then reaching up. So we're creating some tension using our muscular strength, obviously in our upper body, our arms pulling down, but also in the neck, pulling up. So if I just passively kind of let my head hang back, not much is happening, but if I draw on my flesh, I'm getting some stretch through the front of the neck. We can do it a little bit side to side, so maybe pulling down on the right side, reaching up to the left, working to the corners instead. We can try it the other way. Obviously, necks are a sensitive area. We don't want to be just like Pez candy dispenser, flinging the head back. Move through compassionately, safely. Just enough caution to have a sense of self-preservation, but not enough to stop ourselves from getting some benefit. Whoa. Okay. That is our neck and shoulders. Again, let's check in with our intuition. If we see just how we're feeling, sensing into this area, sensing into the upper body. After sitting for a couple minutes, you may have the impulse to move in some sort of direction. I don't know which one that might be. Listen to your body, but we are going to make our way down to lie on our backs. Let's do some gentler stretches. I think I said earlier, flowing movements and circling movements can feel quite nurturing, nourishing, soothing for the body. So that'll be our focus to begin. What can I say before we get there? Let's start lying on our backs. So if we need a moment to get some props together or make ourselves more comfortable, that is okay. Could this be adapted to sitting in a chair as a cool down? Yeah, of course. We could be sitting instead of lying, and you'll see a lot of these movements could be adapted to a sitting position. But for us here on the floor, we're going to do what I call stargazer's pose, or maybe cloud gazer's pose. We're going to imagine that we're lying on a thick, soft, quilted blanket in a beautiful field, and yogi's choice, we are looking up and stargazing or cloud gazing, and we'll simply take ankle across thigh on one side. If it feels comfortable to do this as a chest opener, we're going to lie the arms along the side of the body. For some of us, this will be a big stretch, just simply to lie here on the floor. If some of us would like a deeper stretch, we can take the hands behind the head instead. And all we're going to do is simply circle the ankle. Circle the ankle, wiggle the toes, point and flex. Maybe we're closing the eyes, picturing the beautiful stars in the sky,
or shapes in the clouds. And this is another thing that can help us to relax in stillness, is beautiful imagery in our minds or in reality. Much more relaxing to lie under a tree and look up at the leaves than to lie on the floor and look up at the ceiling. We're going to switch legs, a little bit of core strength. To switch one side to the other, same thing. Circle, point and flex, wiggle the toes. Drawing beautiful imagery into our minds. What kind of sky would you like to be looking up to see? And then noticing the effect of that beautiful imagery on your nervous system, your sense of well-being. And we can use this to replace some of the less welcome thoughts we maybe experience when we lie down. Choosing ahead of time what kind of imagery we want to see. Maybe you prefer to see tropical birds, whatever it might be. We'll come back through center. And we'll come to lie on one side. So I'm going to turn to face you. You turn however it makes sense for you. We're going to move just the top arm. So I'm not going to cue right or left. I'm going to cue top arm. You may have a block under the head or between the knees. We won't be here for too long. But we'll do what's sometimes called yin yasa. So it's not technically a yin pose. It's not technically a flowing vinyasa pose. It's a flowing yin pose, which is really an oxymoron and doesn't make any sense. But that's okay. We're going to take our top arm, and the idea is we're going to draw a circle. So we're working with a comfortable range of motion, honoring our limitations, right? So this is where we can put down our sword and shield and allow ourselves to move. What kind of range of motion is good for you? Some of my participants can barely draw a small circle moving backwards because it's a movement they absolutely never do. So let's be realistic about what's going to happen when you come into that movement. Becoming more limber with every rotation, every breath. Gaining 1 more tenth of a millimeter. We could use our breath as we move through. We might like to have the arm bent or straight, or for much more intensity, we're actually going to flex the wrist as we go. So if we're thinking about our arm lines of connective tissue, it really pulls on them, creates a lot more sensation for us to flex the wrist in either direction as we go through that range of motion. Again, let's see if we can be open to curiosity. We know what it feels like now to circle. Let's add a flexed wrist, see what it feels like to circle. And with some of my one-on-one clients or with myself, I might spend a long time here moving really, really slowly. So if this were to be just a yin pose, we'd let the arm hang in behind and let gravity do the work. If it were just a vinyasa pose, we'd really go for it. So it's that yin vinyasa quality of slow, nurturing, circular movements to develop mobility and also to develop a sense of safety within the body, moving in that range of motion. Sometimes a perceived lack of mobility is actually just the body not feeling safe and tightening in, again, to that kind of cocooned position. We are going to switch sides. You probably just need to roll over. I will turn again to face you. This side might be very different, right? So if we've only had breast cancer treatment on one side, we might need to spend longer on the one side. And we may be thinking, okay, but what about other client populations that have had different type of shoulder, upper body, chest, back surgery? Could they benefit from this? Well, yes, of course. You tell me. Use your brain. What are ways we could modify this for different populations? What populations might need something different than this, right? If we're working with, I'm thinking gymnasts, swimmers, anyone who, baseball players, they're going to need a modified variation of this for their specific individual needs.
But for today, we're doing Self-Care Saturday, aren't we? We are practicing self-care. So with our next rotation, let's ask ourselves, how can I be more caring toward myself? Practicing patience as well. We spent a long time with this on the first side. Spending time with it on the second side. If we want to flex the wrist as we move through, again, there's another option. Flexing it one way or the other. Arm can be bent or straight. Maybe pausing, taking breaks. And I usually start with the side that feels the most comfortable. Generally, people will intuitively lie. They'll roll to the more comfortable side first. So I don't always have to cue that. I did with tree today, if you notice, we pick our favorite side to start. I have heard that there's actually neurological benefit in that. It sort of lays the blueprint when you do the good side first. The second side like learns in the brain, not in the muscle. So I think the same thing here too. We start on our successful side first to know what success feels like, to know what normal feels like, so that when we get to a surgical part of the body, if it's only one-sided, then we can feel what does not feel normal, what kind of pain is maybe, oh, not good, I should avoid that. Okay, let's give it a couple more rotations. Again, asking ourselves, can I try softer? Can I have more compassion to myself? Can I move more slowly? And let's go ahead and come to lie right on our backs. How are we doing? Okay. So I'm going to try to keep this to that 1 hour class, which means we got about another 10 minutes. Once more. Go wherever you need to go at home to be able to see me. We'll finish lying on our backs. We'll come back into our stargazer position, ankle over thigh. And for the sake of us all going together, how about we take our right ankle over our left thigh? And we'll do a variation of a flowing pigeon. Again, a yin-yasa sort of concept. Our yin variation of this pose would just be to drop into pigeon. A vinyasa version might be quite aggressive side to side. We're going to go somewhere just in the middle, moving slowly. Side to side. And the idea with these flowing movements, again, is to feel nurturing, nourishing, but we're also looking for a feeling of safety within the body. So for participants who are really tight, often it feels good for them to do a really big range of motion, but we're working through our pelvis and our lumbar spine, and for some of my participants, they have a lot of movement in there, and kind of counterintuitive, doing a small rock side to side feels far more relaxing. So I'll give you this a little tool that we can use. Which one feels like more of an invitation? So try the big range of motion. Do you feel like you're just kind of going through it, or does it feel like a invitation to a sigh? Or if you do a small range of motion, do you feel the body release? Do you get a greater sense of safety there? If you're not quite sure, you could also try different speeds to see which one feels better. And what we're aiming for here is some stretch through the outside of the hip and thigh area, so you could be feeling that out as well. Some people prefer to do more of a figure four, like we might have done in gym class as kids, and rock side to side. But let's become our own inner baby, right? The same way we would rock a baby if it's cranky and needs some soothing. Let's rock ourselves. We are allowed to be cranky and need some soothing. And again, if it is an invitation, a feeling of invitation, we could turn this into a variation of a twisted pigeon, letting the right foot come to drop on the left side of the mat. Maybe our left hand holds the right ankle.
Noticing how the range of motion feels in the right shoulder. Are we just lying the hand along the mat? Maybe we're bringing hand to body to be more in tune with our breathing. So we want to bring beautiful imagery into our minds. Maybe a field of something seasonally appropriate, a field of, we just passed sunflower season, pumpkins. I find it helpful during a cool down portion of class to picture a sunset, right? That sort of cooling down, winding down, sleepy feeling. Picturing a sunset over a pumpkin field, maybe that works for you. We can go ahead and take it to the other side. Whenever you're ready. So we have lots of options. I hope I'm not overwhelming you with options, but I will give us the option again. So we're doing left over right. We can do a small rocking motion if that feels most relaxing, most releasing. So personally, this is how I feel it. If I do one of them and then I do the other, the one that suits me best, I feel my muscles release, my whole body. So like there's less tension in my shoulders, my face. So feel that out for yourself. Kind of zoom out, feel the whole body, which one feels best. Maybe a little slower, maybe a little faster, maybe a bit of a bigger range of motion, smaller range of motion. Could even be a tiny microscopic rock side to side. Getting the right level of stimulation. I know stimming is kind of a big term right now. Getting the right level of stimulation for yourself. We could pull in, we could rock our legs in a cradle to baby variation. And all sorts of fun facts or random information circulate, right? That we hold tension in our hips, we hold stress and trauma in our hips. That may or may not be true, but it is interesting food for thought as we sense our own hips here. Do you feel like this is an area that's clamping, clenching, tense, tight, maybe just had restricted movement all week and this feels really nice to move them? But if you feel like you're coming up against a blockage, something getting worse, like you feel the body tightening more while you're here, maybe we could try a different variation. Focus in on our breath. Work on extending the exhale or even sighing, maybe audibly. We did lion's breath earlier. If you ever feel you need to diffuse more energy, you could do a lion's breath. The aggressive exhale, sticking the tongue out. So this is a time for self-exploration. Yoga for breast cancer support is not a pose, it's an approach. Self-compassion, honoring our limitations, knowing when to have a fighting spirit, knowing when to just let go. We're not glossing over our own needs. We're acknowledging them. All of these things can bring health to the body. But there's no one easy way to do it, unfortunately. It would be nice if there was just one simple pose, right? Feel free to keep going with that a little bit longer. But if we're ready to reset, maybe we want to do knees to chest, a long stretch. We might be happy with a happy baby pose. I know that's often a fan favorite at the end of class. Again, we might like a flowing or vinyasa variation. Knees to chest and then bend and straighten the legs. Extending to get some stretch can be nice. And we'll finish with an opening pose. So I am going to I'll give us a closed option and an open option, but I hope that our bodies feel limbered up enough to be open. So our more closed, safe cocooning pose, sometimes they call this meeting the mood or matching the mood. Notice how we're feeling now. If you feel like you still want to be kind of cuddled and swaddled, we can take the feet wide and let the knees knock together. We can take our arms over our chest, give ourselves a hug, as we did when we started. And if we are feeling ready for some openness, we can do a variation of what I call double diamond. So we do butterfly legs, soles of the feet together, knees apart. And then we can take our fingertips together overhead if the arms will go there. And you'll know it is the right variation of the pose for you. If we can again feel that invitation or that kind of feeling in the body. Do we get that sort of sage drinking tea in the afternoon, looking out the window with her cat? Do we feel that like cozy kind of happy feeling in our bodies? And if not, we can move around, right? So we might like to do one leg bent, one leg straight, like a sleeping tree pose. Maybe arms in cactus, out to T, alongside the body. But no matter what we're choosing, we're open through the front of the body with any of these options. And I would argue that for most of us, lying flat on the floor is an intense front body opener, intense heart opener. If all day long if you've been through illness, treatment, anything like that, we've probably been hunched into a fetal position. Maybe you've been sitting in front of your computer or on Instagram all week. Anything we can do to bring us into neutral is actually a pretty intense opener. And we'll finish here. So if we feel okay in an open position, we'll stay. We know we have that option to be more neutral or more closed, paying attention to breath and body. And I will lead us through a very brief relaxation. So I hope you are settled in. If not, take your time to let out any remaining fidgets. And we'll go with a fairly typical metaphor for our yoga practice. Let's imagine the breath coming in waves. Inhaling, maybe picturing a wave crashing upon the shore. Exhaling, we see the wave go back out to sea. Inhaling, the waves come in. Exhaling, the waves go back out. And maybe just like the ocean, we can be quite passive with our own breath, just watching it move. Or maybe for today we feel a preference to control the breath. Maybe counting how many breaths in or maybe counting to a count of 4, 5, 6 on the inhale. Counting to a count of 8 on the exhale. And knowing that just like a wave on the beach, we cannot hold on to our breath forever. Eventually, we have to let it go. This metaphor can be further extended to all aspects of life. Eventually, everything must go. And we don't want to, what we might say, gloss over loss. We can acknowledge that there might be something nice about bringing the breath into our bodies. And maybe it feels sad to let things go sometimes. Maybe there's a feeling of fullness bringing the breath into the body. Maybe there's a feeling of relief as we let things go. And as much as we are working hard to maintain our attention on the breath, maybe we can try softer here, being more compassionate with ourselves, not trying too hard, knowing that it is part of the nature of the mind to wander. In the same way, it is part of the nature of life that things come and go. We ride the waves, the ups and downs, and so it is.
Maybe today we're noticing we are in the change of seasons. As summer turns to fall, maybe in ourselves we are noticing that we are in a change of season. Riding the waves of the breath, riding the waves of change. And we will finish exactly as we are today, so please do feel free to stay in this supine position as long as you like. I'm going to stop the video in a second if anybody would like to chat after class. But in terms of our practice, I'm so happy you carved out time in your week to practice some self-care, to learn more about this topic, supporting yourself and your loved ones. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with me and everyone else here. And from my light to yours, namaste.